This week on the Marketers Podcast, we are joined by Marissa Nge. She is a marketing and comms manager at POWERX. She has experience across content marketing, CRM strategy, brand management, digital communications, and marketing operations. Marissa brings a practical perspective on building effective marketing systems, aligning teams, and creating meaningful customer engagement. Let's talk about Marissa's career, because throughout her career, she has built experience across both the strategic and operational sides of marketing. And before joining POWERX, she held several marketing leadership and specialist roles at organizations that include Zurumi America and A-Rand Test Equipment. She worked on marketing strategy, CRM implementation, content development, digital campaigns, brand management, and customer communications. Basically, she did everything. And what makes Marissa's perspective particularly valuable is her hands-on experience across multiple functions of modern marketing, as you can see. So in today's conversations, we are going to explore how marketing and comms continue to evolve, the growing importance of customer-centric engagement, the role of CRM and content in modern business, and the skills that marketers need to thrive in an increasingly connected and fast-moving environment. No pressure, Marissa, whatsoever.
None at all.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here, Ursula. I'm so honored to be a guest and excited for our conversation today.
We are honored to have you. I know you have a lot to talk about career-wise, but before we begin, I know I want to, and I'm pretty sure everyone would love to know a little more about you as a person, the person behind the professional. So how would you describe yourself beyond your professional role in marketing?
So beyond the marketing world, I see myself as a lifelong learner. So marketing is an outlet for me for my creativity, for problem-solving skills. But outside of work, I'm equally as passionate about personal growth, about wellness, and about community. I'm someone who's always curious at heart. So whether it's reading a new book, learning a new skill, meeting up some new people, I'm always trying to expand my knowledge. I'm super passionate about health and wellness as well. So when I'm not working in marketing, I'm probably teaching yoga. I stay active. I love being outside.
How important is it to have a balanced mind and body in order to be a good marketer?
I think it's everything. I think you're going to become a better marketer when you have that work-life balance. So when you have things going on for you outside of work, that you're more than just a role, more than just your career, whether it's, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're whatever it might be. I think it's super important. I think you're going to be a better marketer, a better employee, a better team member when you do have that work-life balance. And I think especially nowadays, it's so essential.
Okay, let's go to the hard questions. No, I'm just kidding. Your marketing career has evolved across content marketing and CRM management and social media and brand communications, which is what we just established in the intro. So what initially attracted you to the marketing field? What was that spark that you said, I want to be a part of this?
So it's actually a funny story. Initially, so going way back out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And initially, I thought I wanted to go into the healthcare, specifically the dental field. And so right out of high school, I started working in the dental office. And after a while, after a year or so, I realized, I like this, but this is not my true passion. So while I was working in dental, I went back to school. I was working on a degree, just a general education degree, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had the opportunity come up to be able to work as a part of a dental project for marketing. It was for a marketing agency. And so I was able to help out with that. And so that exposed me to the world of marketing. And immediately being able to connect the two, I immediately loved it. I like the creativity. And it's something that initially drew me to the marketing field. In marketing, there's so many different routes you can go, whether it's digital, whether it's graphic, trade shows. I love the variety that it offers. I think it keeps so much excitement day to day. And especially in the roles that I've held in the past, I've been able to experience just a little bit of everything. And so I love the creativity. I love the flexibility and just being able to dive into all of the different subfields of marketing.
There is something really funny about marketing and comms, and it's that some people believe that those are shallow careers, shallow professions. And at the end of the day, it is marketing and comms that make us know what's out there.
Yeah.
How do you feel about those people who think it's just shallow?
I think that people don't have a full understanding of what marketing truly is. I think there's a general consensus that people think it's, just creating a flyer, creating a social media post, TikTok video, when truly there's so much more strategy behind it. There's psychology behind it. Every post, every campaign that's created, even every flyer, you're thinking through, how is this going to be perceived? What is the psychology? What colors are we going to use? How is the viewer going to pursue this or perceive this? And I think it's so important that just whether to educate people, knowing that, yes, a lot of people can do marketing or to some extent on marketing, whether, they think they're creating a video. I think it's important just to understand there's so much strategy behind it. And our job as marketers is to help to educate, help to share what goes behind it.
Okay, and now often people think that marketing and comms, they're treated as separate functions. From your experience, where do you see the strongest connection between the two and why?
So I think the strongest connection between marketing and comms is that they're really about building relationships. So marketing is going to help to create the awareness. It's going to help to generate the interest, but communication is what builds the trust. It's what keeps people engaged over time. So I think viewing them as hand in hand is the most effective, right? You can have a great marketing campaign, but if your communication is not clear, if it doesn't feel authentic or it's not consistent, people are not going to connect with it. And the same goes for communications. You could have strong communications, but if you don't have a strategic marketing plan, it might struggle to reach the right audience. So in my experience, I think efficiently combining the two is going to give you the highest amount of impact. So marketing is going to help you to understand who you're trying to reach, why it matters to them. While communication is going to help to tell the story in a way that feels genuine. It's a way that feels meaningful. So whether it's you're talking to a customer, an employee, a team member, a prospective job candidate, I think people want to understand not only what you do, but why you do it. And I think that's really where the marketing and communications both come together.
Marketing has evolved over the years, and now, your experience involves CRM systems and customer comms. So from your perspective, I'm really interested about CRM. So from your perspective, what does CRM play in building stronger customer relationships today?
A lot of people will hear the word CRM and immediately they're thinking about a software, right? They're thinking about Salesforce, they're thinking about NetSuite. They're thinking about a database or something to track customer information. But in my experience, I think CRM is more about understanding people and helping to create a better experience for them. So the CRM really just acts as a bridge to gap the data and the relationships. So it's not just about storing the customer information. It's about understanding your customers well enough to be able to serve them better. I think when it's used efficiently, CRM is going to help you to create a more personalized and relevant experience. So it's going to help you to see the full customer journey. You're going to be able to anticipate people's needs and be able to communicate in a way that's going to feel helpful rather than just generic. I think that's especially important nowadays because consumers have more choices than ever. Companies are always going to try to stand out. And the ones that do are the ones that make people feel understood, right? The ones that really resonate. And I think the CRM plays a huge part in making that happen. So for example, in a previous company, when I started there, the company was only about a year or two old. And we went from a manual process. We had no CRM system in place. So everything was done on an Excel sheet. We had all our
Oh my
customer
God.
shows started there. Yes. And so part of my job there was to help to implement the CRM. So going from cleaning up all the data, looking at evaluating, is this our target market? Is this who we want to market to? Being able to track it, being able to create, customize the CRM. It was super impactful, super meaningful. And just to see the system build from the ground up and evolve over time, turning it into a full functioning CRM. And it's really impactful. I think it's really good stuff. So there's so much that goes behind it too. With it, a lot of people think, okay, I'm just entering my email. I'm just signing up for, signing up this form. And it's like, no, you're going into this whole journey and we're evaluating, we're looking at it, and there's just so much behind it. So
I'm curious, when was this?
So this was a couple years ago. This was in my role at Arent. So I started there, gosh, I think like 2021. And so the
Oh my
company,
God.
yes.
But you know what? It's very interesting how things have changed and how things have been changing for people because it has become easier, but at the same time, it's become more difficult for some people to understand how this works.
I think so too. And I think consumers nowadays are just being bombarded with information, right? Because I think with the use of AI, they're able to get more emails, they're able to see more social posts. So it's having a really good, well-functioning CRM is essential.
You worked extensively with email campaigns, CRM, social media, and scheduled content releases. How do you approach keeping communication consistent across different channels? Because some people may think, okay, it's digital, that's it. It's not. Social media is one thing, email campaigns are a different thing. So, how do you keep it consistent?
So I think I always will start with the core message. So before even thinking about the channels, I ask myself, what is the story that we're trying to tell here and what action do we want people to take? So what's that call to action? And so once that foundation is clear, it becomes so much more easier to adapt the message to the different platforms while keeping it consistent. I don't believe that consistency means saying the exact same thing over and over on different channels. Different channels are going to serve different purposes and audiences are going to consume information differently. And so while social media might require a shorter message, maybe a more engaging approach, while an email, you might go into a longer form content. And the key is just to make sure that the underlying message, tone, and the goal as well remain aligned. And I think one thing that helped me throughout my career is using a content calendar. And I think to approach communication holistically rather than channel by channel has helped as well. I think when you can see communication strategy all at once, you're able to ensure that every touch point supports the same story and it reinforces the same brand experience that you're trying to drive. And then ultimately true that people do not experience the company just through one channel, right? They might see a social media post, they might receive an email, they're going to visit the website from there, they might go and talk to a team member. And the goal of marketing is really just to help to make sure that whether they interact with the organization or however they interact with it, the message is going to feel cohesive. And not only that, it's going to feel authentic, right? They're going to be able to recognize it over time.
Content today moves very quickly cross platforms, very quickly. What would you say separates effective content from the content that just adds to the noise? There is a lot. So what would you say separates one from the other?
So I feel like nowadays there's more content being produced than ever was before. And I think people have become really good at filtering out those things that don't feel relevant or they don't feel authentic to them. I think people are so quick just to scroll past, whether you're on LinkedIn, you're on TikTok, you're on YouTube, whatever it might be, something that doesn't feel authentic. They're just going to scroll, right? You've got about 2 to 3 seconds to capture their attention. So I think effective content is going to start with understanding your audience. And I think it boils down to that core message. Why should somebody care about this? And I think if you can't answer that question, the content might just be contributing to the noise as well. So I think being very intentional with your messaging, intentional with the reason behind the campaign, the message, the post, whatever it might be for content wise is super important. And I think that goes hand in hand with authenticity. Content that resonates isn't always going to be the most polished or the most promotional. I feel that often the content with the real story is what's going to help to create a genuine experience. So for example, a campaign that I worked on at A-Rent was we wanted to collect user-generated content. So we wanted people to take pictures of our product, which was electrical test equipment out in the field. And when you're out in the field, things are never going to be photo shoot ready, right? Things are going to be, a little bit dirty. They're going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect because they're here working on power systems, on transformers, on substations. And so that type of content we found performed the best, right? It wasn't staged. It was authentic. People plugged in the equipment. They took a picture and they sent it to us. And from there, we were able to use that content from our end. And we found it just performed so much better. People want to see what they're actually seeing in the field, right? The real application of it. And so having authenticity in your content is super important.
Is it easy for you to separate Marissa, the consumer, from Marissa, the marketer? And I mean, when you're scrolling and see an ad and you don't want to see it anymore on news, or you stay looking at the ad, do you do it as a consumer or as a marketer saying, I like this. Oh, they shouldn't have done this. Oh, I'm going to use this.
That is such a great question to ask. I think it is a little bit hard to separate the two. Even just, for example, driving down the highway, I see a billboard and I'm like, okay, what is their message that they're trying to drive? How did they portray this? Like the marketer in me is always looking at those things despite the industry. I think something that does help a little bit too is the industries that I've worked in have been very technical. So it's mostly electrical test equipment, it's mostly industrial. And so that's usually not something that I'm going to be a consumer in. But however, I do take that perspective too. There's still the marketing perspective, even though it's B2B. And I feel like everything that I do, whether you're being previewed an ad, you're seeing something in stores, I think there's always going to be that little curiosity point in me that's like, I wonder why they did this way, or what are they trying to drive? Just always understanding the reason behind it. So I think it's always going to be there. But it makes me curious.
Of course, and you've also participated in nationwide industry events and presentations. I know we've been talking a lot about digital, but how important are in person experiences and events in this marketing landscape today that it's becoming mostly or mainly digital?
So I think digital marketing and AI have made it easier than ever to connect with people or to reach people in this sense, not necessarily connecting with them. But I think in-person experiences still have incredible value to them because they create a level of connection that's really difficult to replicate online. So digital channels are really good for building awareness and for sharing information. But when you meet someone face to face, whether you're at an industry event or a conference, I feel like you really have the opportunity to build trust in a much deeper way. You can have a more authentic conversation that's going to lead to a stronger relationship. I think something that's also important to consider too is your audience. So while digital communication is effective, not every audience is going to engage with the information in the same way. So for many of the industries that I've worked in, especially, so there's been multiple professionals, that have been in the field for decades. Like we've seen that as a common reoccurrence within the industries that I've worked in. And so for them, the greater level of trust is going to be built through those in-person discussions. So meeting them at a trade show, talking to them, going to visit them on site, they want the opportunity to connect with people directly. And I think that's going to have a much greater impact than a digital touch point alone. So I think that goes back to knowing your audience too. So for example, I had presented at a conference a couple years ago, and it was right after COVID, after the pandemic, right when in-person events were starting to come back. And being able to present in person gave me more touch points to each person. So whether it was just even after the presentation, someone coming up to me saying, "Hey, that was really great. Hey, can I get your information? I want to learn more," or asking a question versus that digital experience, you're not going to have that same level of impact. For some people, it's, they see the digital, whether it's an ad, whether they're watching a webinar online, and after it's over, unless they're super interested, it's like, they're going to close out, they're going to move on to whatever they're doing next because we have so much content around us. But I think in person really is able to drive those relationships and adding more value as well to it.
A while ago, I'm going to say 20, 30 years ago, being a marketing professional was basically or mainly about being creative. But now you're expected to handle both the creative side, but also all the technical responsibilities. So, how do you balance creativity with the operational side of marketing tools and systems? Some people are like, I love marketing, but the technical part, it's not for me. How to balance it?
So I think approaching it from allowing marketing with creativity and operations to work together rather than to compete is going to be the best bet. I think the creative side of marketing is what's going to help to capture the attention of people, right? It's going to help to tell the story. It's going to help people to connect with a brand. But the operational side is going to help to provide the structure and the data that's going to ensure that those creative efforts are being reached and that it's reaching the right audience, right? You're delivering the results that you want to deliver. Throughout the campaigns that I've worked on through my career, what I found is the technical side is going to help to enhance that creativity. It's going to provide the feedback. The data is going to help you to understand what's working, what's resonating. How can we create this to be more relevant, more impactful? So I think viewing them as working hand in hand, and whether that's, you bring in someone on your team that's more operational versus someone that's creative, having them work together or doing it all at the same, just having that mindset is going to be able to help to drive.
If we take a look at the marketing landscape today, what skills would you say are becoming increasingly important for young marketers entering the industry? I mean, those young people that, again, got into the industry because they said, okay, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to be creating ads, blah, blah, blah. But now the industry has changed. So, what would you say are those skills that these people should be taking into account?
So the first skill that comes to my mind is adaptability. So the marketing world and just everything in general is changing so incredibly fast, especially with the continuous advancement of technology and with AI. I think it's crucial just to stay curious and to be willing to learn and to evolve. I think especially when starting out in marketing, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know every single thing related to marketing right off the bat. And sometimes, we never do with things that are always changing. But I think if you're asking the right questions, if you're staying curious, you're being approachable, you're willing to learn, you're bringing a new perspective, you're not afraid to share your perspective, it's going to be super valuable nowadays. I think it's important just to find that balance, right? Being flexible, being open to change, open to learning, as well as listening to.
I'm gonna go back, but this has to do with something I asked you before, and is that consistency that is so important to be building across all the digital marketing fields. But I'm gonna make it broader, and I'm gonna ask you because you have managed brand consistency across multiple marketing channels and materials. So why is maintaining a clear brand identity so important today?
So I think brand consistency is most important because people are interacting with so many different brands across so many different platforms nowadays. So it's not just a website, it's not just a campaign anymore, right? They're being reached by social media, by emails, at events, talking with sales, different team members. So I think every interaction was going to shape how somebody perceives the brand. So it's important to just have a clear and a consistent brand identity. It's going to help to build trust. When people see that consistency, they're seeing that visual identity and the message across all the channels. It's going to become a sense of reliability, right? They're going to know what the brand stands for, and that familiarity is going to help to build confidence over time. It also helps to it also helps to cut through the noise and the crowdedness of the marketplace nowadays too. So when content is inconsistent, it's going to feel disjointed. It's going to leave them feeling confusing. They're going to be drawn away from it. And so when that occurs, it's pushing people away, right? But when everything ties back to a clear identity and a clear purpose, it's so much more easy for audiences to recognize and to remember it. So for example, right now at POWERX, we have currently 5 different brands underneath our umbrella, and each one plays a really important role in the electrical power services industry and within the cycle. And so by having those brands, making sure that they're aligned, that everything is consistent, that there's messaging, whether it's logos, colors, all of that, consumers are going to be able to recognize the company. All 5 different brands, they're all very different sizes. They're all different. They all provide something different to the industry. And so I think it's super important just to have that consistency so people can understand the story that we're trying to tell.
You've done a lot of things, and we've established that you've done almost everything in marketing. What is the one marketing lesson that you've learned through experiences that you think professionals only truly understand once they work in the field? Because some people think that, okay, they go to college and they're going to know everything there is to know. What is that thing that you go like, you know what? You got to be working in order to understand it.
Something that I've learned when working in the field is that marketing is really never finished. So in theory, it's like a campaign might be done, right? It's linear. You launch it, you plan it, you measure the success. But in reality, it's always evolving, right? So when something goes live, you're immediately learning from it. You're adjusting it. You're refining the message, the targeting. You're optimizing it based on the data that you're seeing. But once the campaign ends, it's something that can be learned from. So whether it's reviewing previous campaigns, analyzing them to see what worked, what didn't work, and we can always incorporate something from our previous work into our current, even if it's just lessons learned. I think it's important to view marketing as a living process rather than just a finished project. It's really never finished.
Whether it's for a good reason or for a bad reason, what is that one campaign that you say, oh my gosh, I think I learned more on this campaign than I did throughout college?
So I think one campaign that really helped me to learn a lot about marketing more than I could ever learn in a textbook or in college was when I worked at ARENT. We were launching a new service. We were launching asset management. And so this was a brand new service that we were offering. Prior to that, all we were doing was providing testing, calibration, which is still very important. But I think going back to understanding the audience, we wanted to understand, okay, who within our target audience is going to need asset management? Is it going to be everybody? Is it only going to be a certain sector of them? And then going from there, dividing up the strategy, like how do we want to approach this? How are we going to target our audience? How is this going to be perceived on the web? What industry resources do we need to use? Do we want to have this promoted on, paid platforms? How do we want to start with this? And that campaign was really impactful to me just because we started at basically introducing something brand new. So when I had joined the team, they had already had just a little bit of marketing established. They already had their services, the product that they were offering, everything was in place. But starting from the ground up really helps me to learn, right? We're starting at nothing. How do we want to perceive this? How are we going to write the messaging on the website? What pictures? How are we going to visually, because it's something that's a service. So it's a little bit harder to visually identify. How are we going to go approaching that? And so just being able to go through step by step, all of the different marketing silos, all the different marketing ways that we can go about it to draft the strategy, and then also going back and measuring it, saying what works, what doesn't work. So starting from the ground up has been really such a great learning experience when introducing a new service.
In marketing, as in every single career, whether it's being a tennis player or being an economist or whatever, there's always great professionals and there's average, okay professionals. What do you think great marketers understand about people that average marketers often overlook?
So I think sometimes that people's greatest weakness is often going to be their own selves. So a great marketer is going to be willing to look beyond just the metrics, beyond the KPIs. They're going to be willing to seek out and be open to feedback, looking at new ideas, new processes, and new ways. And I think the marketers that really stand out are the ones that are going to stay flexible, that they're going to be willing to be open-minded without having an ego or without having a status getting in the way. So for me, the difference isn't necessarily with creativity or technical skill. I think it's humility. So no matter what title that you hold in an organization, what level you're at, however long you've been in the industry, I think having the willingness to learn and to continuously improve is what separates a good marketer from a great marketer.
What advice would you give to someone who is deciding that they want to study marketing today? This is 2026. And they say, okay, I am going to go to college and I'm going to study marketing. What advice would you give them?
I would say that the best way to find out whether something is for you or it's not is hands-on experience. And I think actually diving in, whether you're learning from someone who is a marketer, whether you're doing an internship, whether it's even just joining on a project, something like that, or even just observing, right? Or there's so many resources nowadays too. For example, a lot of people on YouTube, on TikTok are going to do a day in my life as a marketer. Being able to get that insight, that authentic content is going to give you the best insight as to what is, like, if this truly is for you. I feel like I'm probably biased and I'm like, yes, go for it. Like, go do the internship, go, try something out and don't be afraid to fail. Especially too, given my background, right? I started in dental and then I pivoted to marketing. I think a lot of people tend to find like that they have the same experience. They started thinking that they wanted to do something. They end up finding out, they like it, but maybe they want something a little bit more. So I would say don't be afraid to fail. And if you do fail successfully, everything is a lesson learned, never looking at it as something negative, always learning it or always taking something away from it.
If someone is not loving the digital world and they say, okay, I want to study marketing, but I just want to do like traditional marketing. I do not want to get involved with CRMs. I do not want to get involved with digital. Is that something you can do today or are you going to be having problems later?
I think you limit yourself when you silo yourself and saying, I only want to do one thing. However, it does work for some people. Some people can go their whole career. They find an organization that's going to support you and that's going to help to drive that career path that you want to follow. So I think also finding a good match, whether it's finding an employer, starting your own business, partnering with somebody. I think there is a lot of possibility out there. I think too, it's you want to keep in mind, like, not to limit yourself. A lot of the times we go into something thinking, for example, I was like, oh, I only want to do digital, but then I end up loving creative or graphic. And I think being exposed and just getting that exposure really is helpful to understand. Like, we sometimes will see in a textbook and think, okay, this aligns with me. This is what I really want to do. I want to go this route. And in reality, once we're doing something, we're learning, we're doing a different project, being part of a different team. You realize, oh, I actually really do like this, something else, something completely that I did not expect I was ever going to like. So I think keeping an open mind and also just being adaptable is going to help to drive people in the long run.
Marissa, thank you so much. If people want to talk to you, if people want to ask for your advice, if people want to know what it is you do, how can they find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So my name is just Marissa, last name Ng, Nge. So I'm on LinkedIn, pretty active. Feel free to reach out, send a message, send a connection invite. Pretty responsive on there.
Yes, remember the surname is spelled Nge because
Yeah.
that was a hard one for me.
Yes, it's a unique last name. So bunch of random letters.
I mean, as long as it works, it does work. Marissa, thank you so much for being with us today at the Marketers Podcast.
Thank you so much, Ursula.